So from like a brand standpoint, when do I know if you know, should I be going backwards before I go forwards in terms of, actual company branding? Can we use my logo? What's your opinion on that? What's the inflection point?
Well, I have very mixed feelings on logos and brands because there's a lot of companies that your people are your brand, your work is your brand, your the way you communicate is your brand, and that's a lot less revolving around a logo.
Mhm.
So I do want people to have some type of a professional looking identity mark, even if it's just a consistent font treatment of their name and like a line, right? Like some type of professional identity mark will make you look more professional for sure. Whether you invest, tens of thousands of dollars in like your own Nike swoosh, that's
Right.
that's up to you, and I advocate that most people actually don't need that. Um, I just don't think they do. But I think that a professional identity mark is important, because you're gonna use it on everything and it's gonna be, consistent across all things, and then making sure that you're using consistent colors, consistent fonts, consistent language, um, like consistent imagery types. Like I said, if you're going from having normal photos of things that happen in your company to stock photos, that's different. It feels different. It doesn't feel right. So just keeping those things consistent is usually great for a brand, right?
Mhm.
And you may have a different opinion. I mean, do you feel like everybody needs a fancy logo?
No, not everyone needs a fancy logo. I think they do need a logo,
Mhm.
and they do need some sort of identity for sure. I think that a lot of times people, just override it, that it just, "Oh, I'm gonna go to Fiverr and get a logo," and that can be fine, it can work, but just like with most things, you wanna make sure that it's good enough and that it's gonna last you a while. So why not, look into it a little bit more and make sure that you have that branding? Um,
Mhm.
and I think it's worse, if you're starting from scratch, it's typically not that bad. It's when someone's never paid attention to the design, and then there's all these variations out there of we use this color here and this font here and all this, and that's whenever it gets really bad. And hey, maybe we should go backwards and make sure that we have this nailed down. This is our style guide that we use this font, this size, we use these colors, we have these two different variations of our logo, and that's what we use on everything.
Mhm.
And then that allows you to have consistency not only on your website, but on your digital profile wherever you are, social media, directories, etc. So that's typically what I say. But if they have that already, somewhat at least, you can definitely start moving forward.
Yeah, I agree. You need some type of a structure. And I also feel like internally, because a lot of companies don't just work with an external firm, right? They
Mhm.
have people internally that are doing stuff. And so that means that there is an art director of some type in your company that has to be responsible for understanding what that brand guideline looks like. So I've had clients that don't have that and they don't pay attention to anything. And so everything has to go through me. And I make sure it's perfect before it goes to them because I know they're never going to change anything.
Yeah.
But if you are that person and you know you are, then make sure that the person who's doing the design in-house does that too. We just hired in a new marketing assistant at May Create, and she's, like, doing all this stuff, and I was like, "No, no. No, no, you can't use that font." She's like, "It's so fun," and I'm like, "Ooh, I know it's fun. That's not our brand." So you get
Yeah.
nope. You pick from one of these and that's it. And she's like, "This is boring." And I'm like, "It is what it is."
Yeah.
So,
So on
yeah.
the other side of the appearance, and I guess this is we've already talked a little bit about messaging, but when people come to you, do they typically have really good messaging in place? No.
No.
What is messaging
No.
for the construction owners out there?
For me, it's like the tone of voice and the stories that you tell. And so I love the first meetings and interviews when I interview multiple people within an organization and I can hear it. Like I hear the voice, I hear the stories, I hear the way that they talk about their employees. I hear the way they talk about their projects, the way they talk about their work. And I'll hear shared vocabulary between all of them. And I'm like, oh, there it is. I found it.
Mhm.
It's like I get chills when I finally find it because it's so exciting. They don't have any idea they have it, but they do. They do. It's part of
Yeah.
their culture. It's just that's not what they do, right? So I like to see authentic content on the website, like you would be talking to them, right? And so
Mhm.
don't just go out to ChatGPT and shove all your stuff through there and expect it to come out sounding like you, because it won't.
Yeah.
ChatGPT doesn't sound like me either. I'm like, "Ew, that sounded very technical." That is not the way I
Yeah.
talk, obviously. So don't do that for your copy either. You can send it through there to start, but then you need to make sure it sounds like you in the end.
Yeah.
Yeah, so it's tricky. But once you find it, you can make a document that has those statements in it that, then right? Once you start
Yeah.
figuring it out, document it so that way you have it and you could advise somebody in the future.
There's a Barn, have you ever watched an interview of Jeff Bezos? Maybe.
Not for a while, not recently.
Every single
Anything?
one, he says he mentions the customer. He always talks about if
Oh,
there's a
yeah.
question that, "How do you do this?" Whatever, he's like, "Well, we think about the customer." And you hear him say
Yeah.
customer just nonstop.
Yeah.
And you know that
The
his
empty
PR
chair.
people have
Yeah.
completely trained him to, like, hone in on customer.
Mhm.
Um, but yeah, I mean, that's his messaging. It's like, what does the customer want? And that's why we do same day shipping now and 1 hour shipping in some places. But definitely 2 day with Prime and all that kind of stuff. Um, so that's what your messaging is. What is it anytime someone asks you about your business, what's the one thing you're going to say? Um,
Mhm.
so anyways, I think that that's a huge piece that whenever people are thinking about a website, they don't think about the content of it, just like you mentioned pictures earlier, but it's also like, what are you going to say on the website and how are you going to say it? Well, that's where it's helpful to have your messaging in place. And to you mentioned that it's important you go through interviews, but they need to read it. They need to read the content that you come up with before you go
Mhm.
live. And that's why, because if this is going to be your number one salesperson, your website, then you want to make sure that they're representing you well, right? So
Yeah, and that they're memorable as well,
yeah,
because I think what happens actually, I know what happens. You can write something with a ton of personality in it, and you can have, like, really fun photos and make it seem like this is an amazing company that's filled with real people that are gonna
yeah,
do a great job, where people wanna work, and then there's this decision maker who's gonna look at it, and they are not gonna be okay with it because
mhm,
it's not buttoned up. It's not what they think marketing should be, and they'll put the kibosh on it, and then it all has to be scaled back, and it has to become watered down, and the trick with that is that people are going to look at you and multiple other companies online before they decide to buy from you.
mhm,
Now, if they're coming from a referral, it could be fine, right? Because their friend told them to buy from you, and so they will probably work with you. But, like, if they're not, and they're just going through this buying journey on their own, and they're, like, looking for someone to do X, they're gonna look at multiple websites, and if yours looks and feels like everyone else's website, they will never remember you. You're just a number. You've marginalized yourself. And I advocate that you are not a marginal company. You are clearly awesome, or you would not be in business anymore, right? And you are a cool person, or people wouldn't want to be friends with you or do business with you. So let's show them that so they remember you, right? Instead of just sliding into the Rolodex of business cards that no one knows who they belong to anymore. Which,
I describe that in general terms as personality. Don't
yeah.
know if that's a technical term for websites, but what's your personality? What's the personality of your company? And when we do that with people who are writing content, a lot of times they think my my video skills are bad. I look terrible. I don't write well. And I said, no, it's just chock full of personality. I'd
Hmm.
rather see personality in a poor video than an automaton, however you say it,
Yeah.
in a perfectly produced, you know, $5,000 video, 3-minute video. So that's kind of the
One of
way I think about brand. It's more than that, but it's my personality. It's how I'm perceived.
Yep.